Amazing Monsters, The Great Gulper. Written by Jim Slater, illustrated by Christopher Slater. One day, a small brown monster popped out of an oil pipe. Mr. Grimm, who owned a zoo, came by helicopter to take the monster away. Mr. Grimm put the monster in a cage which had iron bars and glass all around the outside. "He doesn't look much, does he?" he said to the keepers. "He seems very friendly, sir," the oldest keeper said. "You can look after him then," Mr. Grimm snapped. Fred was the keeper all the animals liked most. He was very kind and could really talk to them. After a few days, Fred went to see Mr. Amazing. "You know all about monsters," he said. "Please tell me about this one." "He's a young gulper," Mr. Amazing replied. "He needs to drink 1 gallon of oil every day." Thousands of people came to see the little monster. The gulper was very friendly and sometimes stood on his head and turned cartwheels to make the crowd laugh. Some of the children loved the gulper even more than the panda. Fred became very proud of his monster. As the gulper grew up, he began to need more oil and was soon drinking 5 gallons a day. When Mr. Grimm found out, he was very angry. "The gulper costs too much to keep," he said. "From now on, don't give him more than 1 gallon a day." "That won't be enough," Fred replied. "Unless he has 5 gallons a day, the gulper will die." The gulper became ill and shrank to half the size he was when he first arrived at Grimm's zoo. Then one morning Fred read in his newspaper that a tanker had crashed on the rocks just off the south coast of England. "Thousands of gallons of oil are drifting towards Brighton and Bournemouth," the newspaper read. "I know," Fred said to himself. "I'll take the gulper down to Brighton and give him a big drink of oil." Fred didn't tell Mr. Grimm about his plan. That night he took the gulper down to Brighton in his car. When Fred wasn't looking, a big wave swept the little monster out to sea, but as soon as he smelt oil, he began to swim towards it. When the gulper reached the oil, he drank in great gulps, going backwards and forwards until it had all gone. When the gulper swam back to the shore, Fred was there waiting for him. "Oh, there you are," Fred said with a smile. "I was so worried about you." The gulper smiled back at Fred. He was full of oil and very happy. That night Mr. Grimm sacked Fred and wouldn't let the gulper return to his zoo. The little monster slept in the spare room of Fred's small flat in London. The following morning, as a special treat, Fred let the gulper have breakfast in bed. "I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep you," Fred said. "That came from the last can of oil that I use for my car." The gulper smiled back at Fred to let him know that he understood. Fred went to buy his morning newspaper and to his surprise found a photograph of the gulper on the front page. In big black print there were 3 words, "Monster Saves Britain." Someone must have taken a picture of the gulper when he was drinking all the oil. The little monster had become a hero. Daily Mail, 8d. Prize page 7. "Monster saves Britain. Last night a small brown monster swam out to sea and drank all the oil that was drifting towards the sandy beaches of the south coast. The monster saved Britain's beaches from being spoiled for years." Turn to page 6. All that day people kept coming to see the gulper, to take more pictures and hear the story from Fred. Even Mr. Grimm telephoned. "Would you and the gulper like to come back to Grimm's zoo?" he asked in his nicest voice. "No, thanks," Fred replied. "The gulper's much happier here with me." In the evening the gulper went on the television news, and everyone in England was soon talking about the little monster. A week later the gulper went to Buckingham Palace, where the Queen gave him a medal. Afterwards the Queen asked Fred and the gulper to have tea with her. The gulper only wanted more oil, but Fred knew the little monster was very polite, so he said, "Thank you very much, Your Majesty." For tea, the Queen, Fred, and the gulper had some sandwiches. To his surprise, Fred could see that the gulper liked them a lot. "What are the sandwiches, Your Majesty?" Fred asked. "Marmite," the Queen replied. And that was how Fred found out that the gulper liked Marmite sandwiches. Now Fred and the gulper live in a big house overlooking Hyde Park. The gulper has Marmite sandwiches every day, unless a tanker crashes. Then the little monster swims out to sea and has a big drink of oil. Nowadays, most people call the little monster the Great Gulper. You can often see him riding through Hyde Park wearing his top hat and medal. If you do, give him A friendly wave. Remember, the Great Gulper saved Britain.